Welcome to the Author to Authority podcast. I'm your host, Kim Thompson-Pinder. And, there's times I say I'm excited. Well, today I'm not just excited, I'm ecstatic to introduce to you guys Krystle Dookoo. Now, if you've been a listener of the Author to Authority podcast for any length of time, you'll know Krystle is a regular on our Authority Gang podcast episodes each month. But Krystle is going to be joining us in a new capacity because she is my social media expert. When I want to know about social media and what's going on and what do I need to do, especially in the LinkedIn arena, Krystle's my gal. So I'm so thankful, Krystle, that you've agreed to come on and do monthly episodes for us on, social media and being an entrepreneur and using social media. So welcome, Krystle.
Thank you so much, Kim. I'm so excited to be here, and I'm so excited. And thank you so much for asking me and giving me this opportunity as well. For as long as we've known each other, you know how much I love talking about social media. You know how much I love talking about LinkedIn. And I'm just very excited to be able to share that with listeners, hopefully in a way that it's going to help them in their business, as well as know how they can use this new, well, it's not new anymore, right? But this social media to really step forward and get that visibility that they need in their business.
Yeah, and one of the things that I love about you, Krystle, is you bring it down to the real level. Like, you're an entrepreneur yourself, so you're not this big company, who's got huge social media teams, who can have all these resources available. You're an entrepreneur just like the listeners.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And the reason why I think it's so important, because for me, everything that I'm sharing and I'm teaching others to do, it's things that I have learned to do, that I have tried, I have played around with, I have researched, I have seen come out, and I don't just go with it, but I test it out for myself in my business and with my clients to see how that works. And then I can say to another entrepreneur, oh my gosh, hey, try this or try that. And the reason why I like breaking it down into really understandable, digestible pieces is that that's how I learn. Growing up, when someone tries to explain something super technical, it would go over my head, and I would be so, maybe back then I would be ashamed to say that I didn't know. And then I would go and find some way to figure it out in an easier way. And I always wanted to be that as I grew up, and now I ask if I don't understand it, it's like, well, can you break that down for me? And I think the majority of us, as we speak and as we talk, that's how we learn in a very conversational way that's broken down in an easy step-by-step way to understand stuff. And that's how I like to bring things to my clients, so to anyone that I'm coaching.
Yeah, it was interesting for me growing up because I am like technology, motors, I'm really good at taking things apart. Don't ask me to put it back together again. But it was an interesting experience growing up as a child because my dad was in the computer industry in the 1970s.
Wow. That's like at the very beginning of it, right?
Yeah, I had a computer in my home in 1978, 79.
That's I don't think I've ever met anyone that had, because that was such a big, that's like that.
An old Radio Shack Trash 80. And my dad, he designed programs. So in his work environment, he worked to set up computer systems in the Ministry of Corrections, so in the jail system. So he implemented in my province the computer systems to track data and things, and some of the security systems. So, and that was getting computers now into all of these jails. But at home, my dad liked to create programs. So he actually designed games for my sister and I. So but my dad's English, he wasn't the greatest at English. Okay.
Yeah.
Actually didn't even finish high school. Because he grew up in a single mother home. So
Mhm.
he actually left school before he finished so that he could work and help supply for the family. So my dad was a very smart man.
Yeah.
Just English was not his.
His forte.
Yeah. And so my dad would write these programs, and my job was to type them in, or if he typed them in, my job was to go through them line by line. Because back then, even if you had a period out, a program wouldn't work.
Wow.
Because he used to program in DOS. So it was
Yeah.
always a really interesting experience because I grew up around technology. So there was a lot of things I understood, but it's not because my brain works that way. I was just exposed to it, and I heard a lot of that stuff growing up.
Yeah.
But you get into the really techie stuff, and then of course I marry a man who's a computer tech, so I've learned so much more over the years. But for me, especially with my husband, he knows now he has to break things down for me.
Yeah.
Like, don't high level tech talk to me. Bring it down to what I can
bring it down. Just explain it in that way, and
relate it to apples and oranges.
Yeah. But look, you're the one that helped me. Remember when my Zoom camera was tilted, and I did research and no one could fix it. And then we got on, I think just before a podcast recording, and you're like, oh, Krystle, try this and just go here, click here. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it worked. So
well, that's because the same thing had happened to me, and I had half fixed the problem. So I had fixed the problem on Zoom, but my camera was still upside down for other things. Like every time I went on to StreamYard, I was 100% upside down and I couldn't fix it. I could not figure it out. So thankfully, my computer guru husband finally figured out what the problem was and did his razzle dazzle, and I was back up in normal position, because it's very disconcerting seeing yourself upside down on the screen.
Yeah, and you can't concentrate, and I get that. It was definitely not it wasn't enjoyable for me.
So one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on, Krystle, is part of becoming that authority in your niche or niche, however you say it. I can never remember which way is the Canadian, which way is the American, so I just say it both. When you want to become that authority, social media is one of the key areas that you need to build in. And that's why, I really wanted you to come on and do these monthly podcast episodes, not just what's new, but, how do you use social media to get your name out there? And I think people, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think people have a misconception. They've been told, oh, you can just go on social media and sell. Yes. But to me, that's not the best use of social media in your business.
No, it's not. And I agree with that. And I think it just took on a whole different ball game where it worked for one person, and now they're going there and they're like, sell, sell, sell. And yes, it's a great place to get your brand out there and everything. But I always go back to this, breaking it down. They call it social networking sites. Right?
Yes.
And when you think about how we network in real, when you go to a networking event in person, you're not walking with all your products and saying, hey, this is what I do, buy me. No, it's a relationship building. It's getting people to know who you are, getting people to know what you're about, getting people to understand your mission, your branding, what you stand for, the value you provide. So sometimes I always say, I don't know if anyone listens to me, but I think some people do, hopefully. I always say,
listen to you, Krystle.
Thank you. But I have a few, I have people that I do their social media for, and then I have a few people that I coach. And this is what the ones who want to do it themselves, but they need that guidance.
Yes.
This is what I say to them. I was like, think about every time you kind of want to understand social media a little bit, think about how you would act when you go into a real networking event and do that just on social media. You introduce yourself, you engage with other people who are in your target market, or you engage with other people who are following, who are in the same industry you're following, add value, join the conversation, because then they will naturally start to connect with you and want to learn more about you. And the next thing I say, and I was saying this to someone who I was teaching about LinkedIn, it's like the same way if you show up to a networking event once every 6 months, nobody's going to remember you. You have to show up consistently. The same thing in social media. You show up consistently. You share value. Yes, you can talk about you can talk about your product or service, but talk about it in a way that how this adds value to, and you educate, and then people naturally come to you. And Kim, I have experienced that in my business. You know, I in my I yeah, I have experienced that everyone that have come to me to either work on their social media have come either through referrals, or even like with LinkedIn, they came because they saw I've been talking about it. They see where I share what I'm doing and the value there. And then when they're ready, they come, and I put it out there that this is what I do. I have like different sales tactics that I go through to get my clients, but the majority of them come to me, and the ones that stay are the ones that come because of they've been following me for a long time, and they see what it is that I've been doing.
Yeah, you know, it's funny, you talk like about networking meetings, and you know, in one of my previous businesses, I sold straight products, you know, products that were anywhere under $50. And I would do a lot of networking shows. I do a lot of vendor shows, you know, Christmas craft shows, all that kind of stuff, right? And I did it a little bit differently. I always had a ton of product for sale because I wanted, you know, people to see and that. But my main goal was not to sell products at those shows.
Yeah.
You know, if I sold enough to cover my table, I was happy.
Yes.
My main goal was to start that relationship and get people interested in my products and services, get my catalog out there, get, you know, a name, number, phone number, and email so I can connect with these people. And that's how I built my business. Because when I called them, it wasn't about buying my stuff. It was like, oh, how did you enjoy the show? You know, and then at some point I'd say to them, did you get a chance to take a look at the catalog? And they'd say either yes or no. And a lot of times they'd say yes. And, you know, they may have some questions. And if they said no, I said, you know, I'd get them into a conversation about their skincare, their makeup, their body needs, you know, that kind of stuff. And then I didn't try to sell them on anything. It was just like, okay, here's some recommendations for you, you know, and then I'd say to them, because the books came out on a regular basis, you know, did you want another book?
Right.
And most of the time they said yes. And they may have not ordered that first time, but usually the second or third time I gave them a catalog, they started looking at it different because I'd already been educating them, because I didn't try to push them into buying something.
And that's what I like what you say, you educate them. So at the event, you're there, you have your products, but you're building that rapport. You're telling them, hey, well, you're telling them about your product. You're getting to know them. You're getting to know, well, what is your skin like, or what kind of products do you like? What kind of scent do you like? Getting to know who they are. You have your products that they can see what it is you have there. And the fortune came from the follow-up, where, you know, like your social media is not going to sell. The follow-up, it's a great lead gen. It's a great way to, again, build your brand, let people know who you are. And then you have a proper follow-up. Like the way you reached out, hey, did you get a chance to check out the catalog? What did you like? And do you want another? That's where the fortune comes from, the follow-up that we have, that comes after we have a good social media game.
And you also talked about consistency. And one of the things is I did the same shows over and over again. So sometimes people only see me once or twice a year. So I had it where people saw me twice at the same show. Like I did a lot of Christmas shows. And it was the second year when someone said, oh, I remember you from last year, right? And all of a sudden, because of the consistency, I also used to set up, like our mall used to be indoors, now all completely outdoor, but our mall used to have the indoor. And I'd be in my mall about once a month. Set up. And again, the consistency of it, people came to know me for that product line. And it was really funny because sometimes I'd be in a store, standing in like grocery store or something, and someone would come up to me like, oh, you're the person who sells I'm like, yep.
Yep.
So I always made sure I had catalogs on me because people would come up and ask me for them.
And isn't that the most beautiful part? Because then I think the beautiful sale is that they're meeting you halfway. They want what you have. They already got invested in your brand. They know who you are. They know your face, and they've developed that trust with you when they're meeting you halfway now and telling you, Kim, and look, as entrepreneurs, I have to say, I'm sure we can all agree that is the sweetest kind of sale there is. Right?
I'll tell you a funny story. So where I live, I'm on the Great Lakes system, and there's an island that's not too far off from my area that's actually an Indian reserve. And so I would go on the ferry there to sell these products from time to time. And I remember one time I was just sitting there on the ferry, and I was reading something, and someone came up to me, and she looked at me and she said, I've been seeing you all around town. She's like, you sell those makeup products, don't you? I'm sitting on a ferry.
Wow.
And I'm
That's
like,
amazing.
yeah. She's like, you wouldn't happen to have the catalog on you, would you?
I love it.
And I'm like, I always
it.
carry catalogs. Well, especially that day, because I was doing business. And I'm like, yeah, I do. So we sat on the ferry together. By the time the ferry was over, she handed me like $150 order. She just sat on there, went through the catalog, wrote it all out for me. She says, how fast can you get this to me?
Now, Kim, think about it, right? Say you weren't showing up to those events, say you weren't doing the networking, you weren't building those relationships, but you were just going down around to people and saying, hey, do you want a catalog? I sell makeup. Do you want a catalog? How many people in that way? Yeah, you might catch one person that need what you wanted, but how many people would you have gotten that way? They'll be like, oh my gosh, there comes this, like, is she, like, I always think how, and I take it back to social media. I was like, go back to the basics of if you wouldn't do this in real life at a networking event, don't do it on your social media.
Yeah. Well, and I've had it where, especially more geographically locally, so within 2 to 3 hours of my house, right? Because I've done a lot of networking, well, because obviously not the last 2 years, but before COVID, I spent a lot of time down in, the main area of Toronto and all around Toronto, north of Toronto. Toronto's the biggest city in Canada. So I don't talk about the smaller cities because most people don't know, but most people know Toronto.
Yeah.
And I would meet people at networking meetings, and because, you kind of start to build this network, and on social media, everybody's connected to everybody at least 1 or 2 degrees. And I have had times where it's like, oh, I saw that post you did on social media. It was so helpful. Or, now with the podcast, not happening too often yet, but occasionally somebody will be like, oh, I heard your podcast. Right. So, it's that consistency factor. It's that value-based. The other thing I see social media for in terms of authority marketing is social proof.
Yes.
Right. Because when they can go on to your social media profile and they see all these posts and your posts are helping them in their business, and you're creating that relationship by being, that little bit vulnerable. I don't think you should ever use social media to blab out everything in your life, good and bad.
Yeah.
But you got to have some vulnerability in there.
Yes. Yep, I agree. And that vulnerability and how it can help, or what lesson you learned from it. It's not a therapy session to put it out there, but if there was something that you experienced and that you learned from it, and now you can put it out there that can help someone else, it really does. It does go a long way. I mean, we've developed a relationship from networking.
Well, that's how we met.
And networking, right? And look where it has gone. Someone said to me, they reached out to me to teach them how to redo their LinkedIn. And I've known this guy for 17 years. And I was like, who told you that I do this? He was like, you're always posting. I people follow you, they know what you're doing, they see the stuff. So I need it now, and that's why I reached out. And I wasn't even thinking of him as a client, right?
Yeah.
And I was, oh wow, okay, it's nice to know that what I do say does work. But it's always nice to hear that. And you're right, when you post those things out there, when you share that little vulnerability, you let people know what you're doing, people come to you, and not only come to you, but they refer other people who need your services to you.
Yeah. Like a couple days ago, I don't know, it's probably 7, 8, maybe even 10 years ago. Someone in the neighborhood gave me a rose of Sharon twig, and I've been trying to grow this thing all this time. And, finally, after all of these years of carefully tending it, the thing's starting to take off. I might actually be able to plant it outside this year because it was so small. I was concerned that the snow would break it, So it flowered. It doesn't flower. Well, some years it flowers, some years it doesn't. But it flowers in the winter. It's the strangest thing. I think this plant's got its timing off because it's been in the house the whole time. But it flowers. So, but when I looked at that flower, so it's on my kitchen table and the windows behind it. So the day it flowered, if you're watching the video, I'll show you the picture.
Yes, it's so pretty. I saw it.
But in behind the window, it's a complete whiteout blizzard outside. So, that I did that post about, how that reminded me of my entrepreneurial journey. Sometimes the outside circumstances are not fun, like whiteout blizzard, you can't see anything, you can't go anywhere, you can't do anything, and yet inside you can have this peace and you can have this joy. And that, that post has been really popular. I've had a ton of people, like it, comment on it, say, I felt the same way, right?
And what I got from it, I liked it. I didn't leave a comment because to be honest, I need to take more ginkgo biloba, because I'll say I have to do something and then I'll completely forgot. But what I got from it, and I'm sharing it here, is that when you posted that about the journey, what I got from it is that in a environment where you're not even supposed to thrive, right, where everyone else or situations or circumstances are telling you you're not going to be able to thrive, you have this flower blossoming beautiful. And that's the same thing that happens, that we keep at it, we as you with the peace and our environment that we can control, we can thrive even if our external circumstances says that we cannot.
Yeah, I so agree.
Yeah.
So you talked about all the things that you have to write down. So right now, like if you're on the video, I've got like a page plus list of things that I've got to accomplish today after Krystle and I get off.
Yes, this is mine. Our other I go through so much books with writing a to-do list every single day, but it helps. So yeah.
So I think, Krystle, we're coming to the end of the episode. Why don't you talk a little bit about some of the things that you're going to be covering, because you're going to be doing solo episodes, so it's just going to be you. So talk about some of your vision and how do you kind of see this looking?
So I'm very excited about it, because I think what I want to use these episodes for is to take apart different aspects of social media that you might want to understand and talk about it. So for instance, I want to spend some time talking about LinkedIn, about your LinkedIn profile. So one episode I have set up where we're going to talk about your LinkedIn profile and what it should have. Then another episode talking about how to build your engagement on LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. Another one is using stories in Instagram and how to create those stories. So it's really going to be a breakdown of how to use social media and the different aspects of each platform to grow your business, to grow your visibility, to grow your brand. So that way you can refer to an episode as a, well, I don't know how to start to do a reel. Okay, I'm going to take you through the steps and talk about how fun it can be and what you can do. And the reason I am excited about this is because entrepreneurs have shared that feedback with me. I have a friend, she called me her on-demand social media person. She would be like, how do you build a reel? And I would just break it down for her. And she's like, this is so helpful. I have no idea about this. Or how do you use stories? Or what was that sticker thing that you had? And I take it for granted because I know how to do these things, but I know that there are a lot of people that don't know how to navigate it. So when you approached me and when we talked about this opportunity, I was like, I'm so excited because then this is a great platform to bring this in, and it's going to really help entrepreneurs know, hey, how to do this, because there are a lot of people who are in a place that, hey, they want to learn to do it for themselves, and I want to be able to provide that resource.
And I think one of the things I know about you too as well, Krystle, is the fact that you're going to be honest about what each platform is good for.
Yes.
Right? Like that's one of the things I love about you, because you have to be on every single platform.
Yeah.
You know, and I've actually been scaling back a bit and, looking at my business and, where do I really want to place my social media focus? Because, I do use scheduling software, so that does make it easier. But what I found is I was posting out to all these places, but I couldn't keep up with, people commenting, people, liking. I couldn't get the engagement because I was just so, everywhere, right? Yeah. So now I've really been looking at, how do I scale this down? So I feel my main two focuses are going to be Facebook and LinkedIn.
Yes.
Obviously the podcast is going to play into that. And, we might look at YouTube later on because these videos do go on YouTube, but I'm not worrying about that right now.
And those are links that we can put on so people can be directed to your YouTube channel. And, great point, Kim, in that it's where you said about having to keep up with the engagement and the responses. And that is the meat of social media growth, right? Your postings are great, but your engagement and your responses, so that has to, unless you have a whole team that's responsible for doing responses to each different platform, it can get overwhelming. But it is so important because the engaging and the commenting with the people are really the bread and butter as opposed to the post.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm
excited.
Me too. Same here. I'm so excited for this. So I'm so excited to record my first one to go out there. And this one is going to really be an intro to the different platforms and how to get started, what might be best for your target audience, because we also have to show up where our audiences are. Mm-hmm. So I'm excited to share that information, and hopefully after that episode, our listeners or your listeners can take away which one they want to get started with or concentrate on.
So just so you guys know, Krystle's episode is going to be the very next one.
Yes.
So I'm excited, Krystle, I'm looking forward. I know you're working on it right now and you'll have it done shortly, and I'm excited to listen to it. So I just want to say thank you, Krystle, for joining our team here at the Author to Authority podcast. I am excited about what we are going to see happen with your podcast. And I really, truly believe that you are going to provide a tremendous amount of value. So we are going to sign off, but just before we do, I love the power of community. In the Authority Gang, we were having a discussion one day, and Carol Boston, one of our favorite, well, we're all our favorites, but Carol Boston just has a special place in our heart. And she said this to me. She says, Kim, why don't you tell people to share out your episode? Don't you think your episodes are valuable? And I'm like, yeah, they are. She's like,
they are.
And you don't ask? I'm like, no. She's like, she kind of gives us, she has this kind of mother look that she gives us every once in a while.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like, duh, right? So in honor of Carol Boston,
Yes.
if you enjoy these episodes, please share them out. I really want to get the word out there about the podcast. I work hard on it. I work hard on these episodes and to give you value and to bring in experts. And if you've enjoyed it, if you have no other entrepreneurs, please share it out to them. That is the best thanks that you can give me. Also, as well, if you want to connect with me, LinkedIn, Word Ninja Kim. And on Facebook, it's just Kim Thompson-Pinder, or you can search out the Author to Authority group on Facebook. So thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to tune in next time for Krystle's first episode. And I will be back after that. Have a great day, everyone. Bye now.